What's up, pagan people? Drew here. And this isn't technically a VR, but it is, I guess, in a way. So I've been, as I always do, peeking around in different pockets of the pagan community online. Over the past month, there have been a couple things that I heard that really sparked the thought and contemplation and even kind of like not feelings of sort, or you know what I mean? Like there was a reaction to what I heard. Not even a negative reaction, definitely not a positive reaction, but just kind of, what? It just didn't settle, it didn't sit right with me, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So I just kind of wanted to talk it out because it's been banging around in my head for a month. And this is not to call anybody out or to disagree with anyone or say that they're wrong. That's not what it is. It's just legitimately my thoughts on these topics that came into my awareness. And, this is the place where I do that, where I share that kind of thing. So here I am sharing. So the first thing was I was poking around online in a format where it's all text. People just, typing back and forth. I cannot remember what the question was that sparked the response, but the response was that the way that modern pagans use the word matron is wrong, and that matron is actually a nurse. Originally, that's what the term meant, and so on and so forth. And this just did not sit well with me. Now, look, first, let me say, until October of 2019, I had no dog in this fight. I'd been practicing magic for 13 years without ever having any kind of exclusive relationship with either gods or goddesses. At my core, I am pantheistic, I think. I will probably always be that way, but who knows? At any rate, as many of you will know, in October, it started far earlier than October, but it became clear to me in October that there was a situation that I was going to have this relationship with this goddess that could be described as a matron situation, right? So I had purely understood this term from the outside as an observer through other pagans using it to describe their relationship with deity, matron, patron. And this understanding that it's this sort of exclusive, but it's a special relationship that is had between the pagan, the witch, the whatever word you want to use there, and said deity, right? And I felt very comfortable with that even before. That it made perfect sense to me why someone would say, when someone said to me, this is my matron goddess, I understood exactly what it was that they were saying. I got it, even though I had never had an experience like that myself. So this statement settled into me and made me uncomfortable. Now, the first reason it made me uncomfortable is that language is living. It's alive. It grows, it evolves, and changes. So no matter what a word originally meant, it could end up meaning something completely different depending on how people use it. This is why the dictionary is constantly being amended, because a word will mean something and then a group of people will take that word and do something else with it, and it becomes that other thing. It might still be both, but language is evolving. It's not one thing. So if a whole group of people, so if pagans have taken this word and decided that this is what it means in that community, then that's what it means in that community. And at some point, it may come to mean that on a larger scale, right? So that's honestly, my initial reaction. That was who are you to say that they're using the word wrong like that? I don't know, that it hit me some kind of way. Again, not to be like, I have no judgment of this person. I am trying to understand and observe my own reaction and go deeper into that. And that's why I haven't talked about either of these things that I'm going to be discussing in the video for a whole month. I decided before doing the video that I would actually look at definitions, and I looked in the dictionary and whatever, but I decided to sort of just Wikipedia type deal, right? And so, yes, matron was like the word that described the chief nurse. In many places, I think like the UK, Europe, kind of UK for sure. That word sort of fell out of fashion. It evolved within itself. And granted, it typically did revolve around medical care and what have you. And from what I understand, the term is coming back into use, but it was used for more than one thing. It evolved within the time it was used. For instance, before women were allowed to become police officers sworn in, they were called matron. Instead of being called police officers, they were police matrons. So, that's a whole other field. In British boarding schools, the marm, she was the matron. Like there have been multiple uses for the word over time. But the thing that holds the most significant with like the historical meaning and usage of the word matron is that it's derived through French from Latin. And the original word in Latin meant mother. And this is the sort of energy that word has. Matriarchy, matron. It's very motherly. The matriarch of a family is the female leader of that family, right? For me, the word matron is very much tied to the feminine. It is very motherly and sort of authoritative in a way, but like this loving, guiding, motherly, right? This is the feeling, the energy, what have you, that this word carries for me personally. And I don't know that I could think of a better word to describe at least my own personal relationship with my goddess, whom I would call my matron. She is that, right? She is this feminine, motherly, authoritative. And when I say authoritative, I mean like she's an authority. I go to her for wisdom, guidance, knowledge, that kind of thing, right? So I personally, I can't think of a better word to describe that relationship in my experience, my limited, very limited new experience with this relationship with goddess than matron. So I am going to continue to use the word as such. And I don't know. This is just a conversation that I observed, and that it just didn't settle into me properly, and I had to kind of investigate that. And I'm sure that most pagans don't care. They're probably in the mindset of me that the word means what we use it to mean at this time. But I really wanted to understand why I had this sort of adverse, if you will, reaction. I wasn't triggered. I didn't get mad, but I was just like, why does that make me uncomfortable? Other than the fact that language is living and it evolves. So I wanted to investigate that a little bit. And ultimately that's it. I think had I heard that before I had this relationship with goddess that I do now, maybe it wouldn't have maybe I would have just been like, and moved on. Still again thinking, the word means what we say it means, essentially. But it hit me a different kind of way, and I wanted to understand that. And I think that's what it is. I think that at its core, the word has taken on an emotional attachment for me, if you will. There is a feeling that comes along with this idea, this title of matron, when it comes to a relationship with goddess. Okay, so there's that. I hope that made sense. Okay, the second one is a conversation that I heard. A conversation. It's not important at any rate. The second one is kind of completely, it has nothing to do with the whole matron patron thing, but it is deity related. So I figured I'd just lump them both into one video and talk about them because they were just within days of each other that they came into my awareness, and I had these sort of like and sat with it and tried to understand my feelings and understand what it was that was happening. Again, I'm not here to argue with the source of this thought process or what have you. I'm just putting in my 2 cents, that what happened to me as a result of hearing what was said. Basically, the gist is that this person thinks it's laughable. It seemed to me that the person thinks it's silly that a witch or a pagan would say that a god or goddess chose me. came to me. And I get where they're coming from to an extent. For me, their thing is, why would they need to do that? Why would they care? And I can understand that thought process. But the idea was that, we choose our gods and goddesses. And even back in the day, even, if we were in a Celtic community or a Greco-Roman community or a Scandinavian community, we would still pick the gods or goddesses that we worked with. Now, first off, I will say that I don't know that that's true. I wasn't there. I was not in, Scandinavia running around with Vikings. I mean, maybe in a past life, but Drew was not there. So Drew cannot say that there was never a time that someone walked into the wilderness and came out having had an encounter with a god, with Odin, and then was a devotee of Odin or whatever. I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I can't attest to the fact that Athena never came to someone and said, "You are my child," and, whatever. I can't say that. I totally agree that the vast majority of people then and now choose who they want to work with on some level, but I can't say that even then there was never a time where a deity came to someone and that's how they developed their relationship. I don't have that kind of crystal ball to look back and to see what everybody was doing. I don't know. That's just my sort of initial hiccup with this idea that it's not a thing, basically, that, deity just doesn't come to people. My second problem with this is, okay, even if that was true, we live in a world community now, right? We're not stuck in our little village where the main deity is so-and-so of such and such. You look at different civilizations throughout history, and they will have had, within their unique communities, different gods and goddesses. If they were polytheists and they had multiple gods, there would be, one god would be favored or rule or whatever, preside over one area while another over another, and so on and so forth. That's pretty normal from our understanding. So yeah, if I grew up in such and such place, would be drawn to work with such and such deity. But that's not the case today. I'm living in North Carolina in the United States. And again, if I were to go by the deity that rules the land where I lived, I'd be Christian. So I have this exposure to so many different deity from so many different times and so many different places, just logically, through education and, mythology and what have you, right? So I am open to the possibility of so many different gods and goddesses. They're no longer as locally isolated. Now, again, the vast majority of people who will work with Shiva, for example, are going to be Hindu, and they're going to be located in a certain geography for the most part. But I actually had more than one customer come into the shop when I worked at Compass Rose, who was not born and raised in this country and came here and brought their gods with them. I don't think that gods are limited by social structure or geography. That doesn't make sense to me, particularly in this day and age. Again, feel free to disagree. These are just my thoughts. But it makes sense to me, even more so in the context of today, that a god or a goddess may come to someone to work with them. I also have a little bit of a I think therefore I am kind of mentality happening, right? I don't know that a deity would die if they were forgotten, but maybe they would evolve and change, or at the very least, maybe they would weaken. I liken it to something like influencers in social media. How much of an influencer are you if you only have 100 followers? Whereas if you have 100,000, the difference between those two things, and it's a bad analogy, but it's what I've got. I do believe that a deity, I don't have the right terminology. Growing in power is not the right terminology, but growing in influence for sure, the more followers they have. Why wouldn't a deity want to collect and to gather people to them for that reason? It sounds really earthly and petty, and I don't mean it that way at all. But obviously, I have had a goddess come into my life, and I became aware of who she was in October, as I said, and I was shocked. I would have never chosen this goddess. Actually, I would have chosen a god. I've said this many times. It's just my comfort zone. But clearly what I needed and need in my life is a goddess. And it makes sense to me when I think about it. So, and then the more that I have developed a relationship with her and learned about her and gotten to know her, I'm amazed and I'm grateful. And I realize what a fool. Like I would have missed out on something because I wouldn't have chosen her. I wouldn't have. Even if it was said you have to choose a goddess, this would not be the goddess that I would have chosen. Not anything against her. It just wouldn't have occurred to me to choose her at all. So I am more drawn to other pantheons than the one that she is a part of. Or I was. I'm not anymore. But I was. And so, yes, I'm biased, I guess, at this point. But even before this happened to me, I definitely, anytime somebody said to me, this goddess or god came to me, I'm like, yep, like, I get it. Like, I always believed that that was a thing. I'd actually had gods and goddesses come to me before, just not in this sort of matron or patron relationship. Just more of, hey, I'm popping in, here's some good information, nice to meet you, and left. That's just, I don't know. Again, this is probably all colored by the fact that I am pantheistic and that that's my view on the universe, on the way this works. And I don't mean that as in, I mean that as in it colors the way I think and feel, but I also mean that as in that's what I'm open to. So I am not I'm closed in a box, but it's this box and somebody else is closed in this other box. And so how we interpret and the information that we're even open to receive and the interactions and the development and whatever that we're even open to is going to be different because our boxes are different. I hope to one day not be in a box, but I think as long as I'm in this body, I'll probably be in a box. The ego, it's just ego. But at any rate, again, it's not about fighting or being right. I don't care. I do not care. I do not need to be right. I'm right for me. And if I'm not right for you, that's okay. I really genuinely don't care. I am not an arguer. I'm not going to try to convince anyone. The only reason that I'm making this video and stating these things is because I feel like when I hear one side of the argument and I can add something to another side, not even the opposite, just another voice, another idea, another experience, that I want to do that because we are each on our own path. We each have different steps we're taking, and there's reasons for that. And so there may be people who need to hear what these other people are saying to take those appropriate steps on their path. But there are also going to be, in that case, people who need to hear these words to take the appropriate steps on their path. And that's basically what it's about for me. And it's about sharing my thoughts and my feelings, ideas and experiences, and just giving a voice, in this instance, a voice that sort of has another perspective from what I've heard. Again, not to be argumentative at all, I like diversity. Yeah, I don't know. I am not a one truth kind of girl. I'm not into it. So anyway, okay, this is my truth. These are my thoughts. This is what's been bouncing in my brain for the past month. I think I got everything out I wanted to say. If you have any thoughts on this at all, I would love to hear them. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, much love and gratitude.